Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the Global Reality Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us here tonight for another late-night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. It is Monday, March the 19th into Tuesday, March the 20th, 2012. We are live here with you for our first show of the week, so we thank you for being with us here tonight as we will get into a whole big bunch of news stuff that we had, some stuff we had left from last week. Stuff that's come out over the weekend, and, of course, stuff from today on Monday. So we've got a whole lot of news tonight to get into, maybe a few emails as well here. We'll go through the stack and see what we have to get into tonight here on the show. We always love to have emails from you as well, if you'd like to send them in while I'm live, or if you're listening on an archive the next day and you want to get a question in for the next show, you can always send it to Global Reality Show at gmail.com. That's Global Reality Show at gmail.com. And that is where you send in all of your emails and things of that nature that you want to hear me discuss, or questions, comments, anything else. Global Reality Show at gmail.com. That's where you send those in at. Always love getting email and getting everything we get from the listeners out there. My website where this broadcast originates from is theglobalreality.com. That's theglobalreality.com. And you'll find everything pertaining to my work and how you can get the tools you need to let people know about what I'm trying to do here. And my sort of end of this, which is, I don't really, people always ask me what my focus is, and it's kind of hard to say because my focus is always ever changing, because what the avenues and areas and research I'm going into are constantly changing as well. And that's why I am always skeptical of, researchers and hosts and people out there who, you hear some of these guys, they haven't changed your stick in 20 years. Some cases longer than that. And I'm always skeptical of that, because I know for myself and for other people who are actual researchers, when you're actually doing your own research on this stuff and not just, trying to program somebody with an already existing paradigm, the natural way that things go is that you're constantly progressing and you're constantly finding new information and constantly finding things that challenge your paradigm and your belief system. And so when I see these guys who, are, big best-selling authors and have syndicated radio talk shows and, all these alleged followers and all this big money and stuff, but yet, they don't seem to ever be pushing the envelope for information. I mean, it's like Alex Jones always claims that he's the tip of the spear and doing more than anybody else. But what new info does he bring us ever that is expanding what we really know about it? Not at all. It's all crap that we all already know, or already all should know for the most part. And it does nothing to ever get us any closer to really figuring out who it is and what it is that we're dealing with here. So, we can go out and bullhorn empty buildings, and we can go out and, stick cameras in the faces of these shills and yell and scream at these cronies of the military-industrial complex and the government and the medical industrial complex and everything else. But it's never going to do any good unless we're starting to not go after the middlemen anymore and the middle management and start going after the CEOs and the people in charge of this global, worldwide, killing regime. So it's just astounding to me that anybody can claim that they're a researcher and they constantly stay on this stuff, but yet, still call themselves, I know everything there is to know about this research, but I'm still a Christian and I call myself a Christian and all this. And I've never understood that. I've never gotten that. That was, even before I even knew anything about Jones, when I was still kind of a follower and a fan of his way back when, that was the one thing for me before I had any evidence or anything about the CMP or anything else. That was always the big one for me. And I heard him a couple of times, and I think you can probably go out and find some of these. There were some of his cable access shows from around, I think anywhere from between like 2005 and 2007. And, how a lot of times at his show, Jones will say, God bless you all, folks. Take it easy. Something like that, And at the end there was a couple of his, I don't even know if these are out there anymore. And I don't think I have them anywhere. But there's a couple of, I just remember this the other day, there's a couple of clips of Jonesy, if you can find them. And it's at the end of one of his shows, and he says, Yahweh bless you all, folks. Have a good night. He actually says Yahweh. Yahweh bless you all. He said that a couple of times. And I remember catching him saying that a few times back in the day, somewhere between like 2004, 2005, 2007. That was kind of when I was, 2007 was kind of coming out of the Jonesy juice by that time. But between those years, I was really listening to him. And I'd heard him say that a couple of times, closing out the show like that. Yahweh bless you all. And I'm just, it always kind of caught my attention. Like, why is he saying Yahweh there? You know what I mean? Because I always associated that with, of course, with the Hebrews and stuff, So I always thought that was odd. But, that the stuff of, it's always, the enemy is always anybody except anything that has to do with religion or with right-wingers. And if you ask him about something like that has to do with right-wingers or the priest class or something like that, or religion, he'll just say, oh, well, that sounds phony over there, folks. That's a phony right-wingers. Yeah, we don't hang out with those guys. Me and Ron Paul don't hang out with those guys. There's the phony Christians, too, folks. You got to stay away from those.
Suck sentence, cock Jones. I let you have that big fucking mansion. I let you have that glass-bottom boat. I even let you hang out with Charlie Sheen. And what the fuck did I ever get in return? Nothing. Get in here, Jones. It's time to suck Satan's cock.
Yes, indeed. I agree with that. Definitely agree with that. Oh, man, oh, man. Let's see what we have here tonight as far as emails. Give me just a second. Wow, I thought the pitch shifter was still on. It sounded like it was still on there for a bit. I'm like, I thought I turned that off. Okay, what are you doing? This is from someone named Rick, and he says, hello, I was always suspicious of Alex Jones. Now your new video cemented it for me. But here's my $1 million question that drives me nuts. So why Alex Jones? Why do the bad guys want to stir up the public pot or whack the beehive? Is this not the last thing they need right now? After all, psychopaths are fearful of any undue attention placed on them. note to that you should do a show about David Icke. John Lamb Lash has been somewhat suspicious of him writings. I've done, you need to go back and listen to the archives. I've talked about David Icke and told my stories and my standpoint on David Icke a million times. So many times I really don't want to have to go back and rehash it again. I've told people, I've told those stories. I've requested that somebody go and find one of those shows and cut that out, where I've talked about Ike and told those stories, me interviewing him, and we went out to the thing he did in New Mexico. I've told those stories before. As far as the whole Alex Jones thing and the whole, you need to watch, obviously if you watch my film, The Secret Right 2, obviously you either haven't seen that movie, or if you watched it, you didn't watch it close enough, because that's what the whole film is about, is answering that question. Because it's not just about stirring the beehive or anything else, but that's part of it. They have to get us riled up and divided. It's divide and conquer, man. It's classic Machiavellianism. They want us riled up in fighting against each other, so that we'll want to take up arms against each other, just like, the Civil War in this country. They want that to happen again. They want us to destroy each other, so not only do they then have an excuse to... This is why, Jonesy's been for years screaming and yelling about FEMA camps and martial law and all this stuff, right? And you understand what he hasn't been telling you about that is that he is going to be one of the single contributing factors to why they will actually initiate martial law and why people will start being put in camps. He's not telling you that. His job is to get everybody riled up in an armed conflict, and his ass will fly out of this motherfucker on a C-130 like the Saudis and the Bin Ladens did after 9/11, never to be heard from again. You think Jones is going to be out there fighting and dying on the front lines when the shit goes down? Hell no. Hell no. You don't live in a $2 million house if you're playing for the right team, and that's just a fact. You can let everything else fly out the goddamn window. That right there. It's on the public tax records. You can go and look up yourself. It's not a secret. You can see how much his house is valued at, and his house is valued at about $2 million, and you don't get that playing for the good guys. It just doesn't happen. So you can have your speculations and all that, but obviously, I don't think you haven't listened to enough of my shows, and I don't think you've watched my films closely. So I would go back and consult more of this stuff before, my God, it's pretty clear. Not only that, they've set this thing up from the get-go. They knew that grassroots movements and movements of the people were going to start up. I go listen to the shows I did on Red Ice. I explain a lot of that stuff in great detail there as well, about how, the analogy of, let's say you never heard of the truth about 9/11. You find out about that. You want to do something about it. You decide to go start an activist group to awaken people to the truth about 9/11. Then you go and find out. And this was certainly the case for me, and certainly the case I know for a lot of people. You go and find out, there's already a 9/11 group in my town. Well, I'll just go join that group. Next thing you know, you've joined a group when you aren't really a person who joins a group. And the reason you did that is because, there's already one existing. So why do I need to start my own? Well, that's an analogy for the whole entire truth movement, patriot movement, John Birch Society thing, whatever you want to call it. They started and created their own adversarial groups. That's where the term controlled opposition comes from. They start these controlled opposition groups so that when the people really do have populist anger because the elite are initiating their agenda, there will already be groups that can control that dissent, that are set up and pre-planned by the power structure itself for damage control as they initiate their plans of war. This was after World War II when you had the rise of the League of Nations, which was their first stab at global government. They were going for the gusto. And they backed off of it and decided to just move forward and keep it a secret. But that's the whole mechanism behind that, is to make sure they knew so far back, folks. Everything that's happening right now, they've known for decades it was going to happen. They know what's going to happen 2 or 3 decades from now, because everything happens on a time scale that they control. We could be it's really hard to tell, but there's we could possibly be, if we had access to the same level of technology that is kept in secret from us, our entire society could be progressed at least 50 to 100 years, maybe more into the future, overnight. I mean, the top technology stuff they're telling us about now, I was reading about 10 years ago when people were saying it was a conspiracy theory, like the X-37B and all these little unmanned stealth fighter things that kind of look like UFOs if you were to see one at night. And 10 years ago, dude, that was the kookiest smoking crack conspiracy theorist shit you ever heard of. Now it's in the news and they're talking about openly they have, well, no, by the way, not only do we have those now, 10 years after the fact, they had them 10 years ago, but we have particle beam lasers on them now. That's a great thing to have on drones flying around. Let's see here. This is from Justin. He says, hey, hi, Josh. I was just listening to your last two shows where you spoke about the Djinn. I actually remember that episode of Alex Jones when he was interviewing John Stone, and from what I can remember, there were actually several instances that he would cut off or try to discredit what Sean was saying. That episode, in an episode where he tried to explain the Mescalitos, made it abundantly clear he was nothing but a puppet. Anyways, the book you mentioned on last night's show, The Vengeful Djinn, is actually a good read. Rosemary Ellen Gulley is a great researcher and has written several books on the topic of the paranormal beings like the Djinn and the Fae. Phil Imbrogno went under the microscope about a year ago for faking his educational history and has since disappeared. Whether his side of the book or is legit or not, he's a great storyteller. Well, you know what? It's what I've always found is that people like that when they try to discredit them are always generally people who are on the right track. I remember some years ago, it was probably been 8 or 9 years, I guess now, that I started to get into, first started hearing about David Hatcher Childress. Of course, he's all over Ancient Aliens and all that stuff now. Some kind of sexy woman and some kind of aliens. But he's fantastic. But no, I saw some of his videos about, the various tracks and stuff on the moon where it appears that somebody's been up there on the moon mining stuff for some kind of mining operation going on the moon. And I remember, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, first started hearing about him going to checking up on his stuff to see if he was legit or not, or see if he was maybe a spook, And the first, everywhere I would look, I could never really find anything that connected him to anything, but it was always stuff like, they were always trying to discredit him. Like they tried to say that he, trying to discredit his works and his books and stuff because he doesn't have a degree in archaeology, but he calls himself an archaeologist. Well, so what? What's an archaeologist? I mean, how do you define that? What, you can't call yourself that unless you have a piece of paper saying you're, from a school. Yeah, that's bullshit. If you go around and excavate things that are buried and do archaeological treasures, you're by definition an archaeologist. So, when you kind of see those kind of things where they go after, I mean, especially with some topics like this Djinn stuff, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this guy, this guy may not be a spook or something, but it could be that he's actually telling the truth. And he was trying to maybe hide some of his stuff so they know who he was. And then when they came after him about his educational history, it probably became very obvious to him they were coming after him for his info, and he disappeared. So I'll definitely check the book out. Maybe we'll read it here on air. I gave the book to a friend of mine who was a devout African Muslim to read and was really surprised at his response. While he confirmed that a lot of the research was spot on, he shockingly told me he learned a lot from the book. Unfortunately, he won't tell me what, though. Regardless, I recommend checking it out. Hell, I could mail you a copy if you like. If you want to send one to my P.O. box, go ahead. Keep finding the good fight, Justin. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Our friend Allison, who always sends us the wonderful anagrams of things, has been sending some anagrams about stuff with these with the Djinn and being 3 types of Djinn, which is pretty interesting. Where did this? email go? She said, I just had a weird thought that popped straight into my head when you were reading about the Djinn, that being the genie bottles they are trapped in are actually human bodies, that they are what animates us, and they are striving to be free from their imprisonment. I will look into this. Yeah, that very well could be something to do with it. It's always been one of the big questions that has arisen to me, or at least, in my opinion, from reading the ancient Sumerian text. That's always been the big problem with me, because they don't really, maybe they do in some of the other stuff. I haven't read all the Zechariah Sitchin stuff. The only stuff I've ever even read of his ever, I never got into his stuff prior to reading his stuff here on air. The only reason I ever decided to read it on air is because I always see people just getting in an uproar, getting their panties all in a bunch at the mere mention of his name, and never could ever hear anybody bring any real facts to the table as to why his shit was bunk. So when I just for years had made the conscious effort to never look at any of his stuff, never read any of his books, and to just find out what I could find about this stuff on my own. And I think that I had a successful time doing that. And once I started reading his stuff on the show, then it became time to, okay, let's get into this and decide for, because I'll be able to decide for myself if it's bullshit or not. And there's a lot of it I don't agree with, but then there's other stuff that jives with things that I've found for years and years and years and years of researching independently on my own without ever looking at his info. But the one thing I've never saw in any of that stuff is they never talk about how they were able to get the bodies or the humans that they created to be animated, to have a soul, and for that soul to inhabit. So, Allison, it's a very that's a very distinct possibility that's a big part of it is, that maybe these Djinn have something to do with, a part of it that they use to animate us. I don't know. But that's fantastic, and I can please continue to send me more of the Djinn stuff that you find, Allison. It's that's great stuff, and it's always it's always fantastic to have listeners who are not only just amazing and smart and intelligent females, but also fantastically beautiful females as well. I love that, so I'm a big fan. So thank you there for that one, Allison. Let's see what else we have here tonight. This says, hey, Josh, I was listening to some Red Ice after viewing your 2-hour interview on there. I came across the work of Joseph Atwill in his book, Caesar's Messiah. I was wondering what your opinion was on Atwill and his work. I've never checked out his stuff. I really honestly don't check out as many researchers and stuff anymore as I should, and I don't really have a lot of time to. I'm generally too busy working on my own stuff now. I'm really just they're just going from project to project to project now, because I feel that that's the most important thing for me to do. And there's so many things I need to make films about, so many things I need to get down and get on the, into the digital domain for prosperity and get out there for information for people to find it, that I don't have time to look at a lot of people's work as much. So I don't really have an opinion on whoever this Atwill guy is. I find his research to be interesting and have read some of his books. His basic thesis is that Caesar's bloodline created the story of Jesus to pacify the Jews waiting for a militaristic Messiah. It seems to me he has very legitimate points. His work may even tie into some of your stuff. Would greatly enjoy your angle on his research. I'll definitely try to make a mental note to check out his stuff, Atwill stuff, and I'll let you know my report here on the show as soon as I check some of that out. So thanks, William. I appreciate that. This is interesting. I had never heard of this. There's a video here, and I had heard that there had been some artifacts that had been recovered from the looting of the Iraq National Museum and the invasion in 2003, I was aware that some of those had turned up, coincidentally and conveniently in Rome. But I was not aware of this. And for me, if this is true, and it's from a news report, and I have the link here, I don't have any reason to believe it's not. This to me, it just seals up and wraps up everything that I've been researching, and all this CMP stuff and the Alex Jones stuff and the ties to Adnan Khashoggi and the priest class and just all the unanswered questions. I mean, it really just makes sense on top of everything else. And when I heard this and saw this video clip, I don't know. It just felt like everything came full circle. I really am still speechless about it because I can't tell you, folks. I've had this suspicion of this. I don't know how and I've never heard of this before, but apparently there were some ancient tablets. I don't know exactly where from. I'm guessing from what they're saying is ancient tablets. They were from, they're cuneiform tablets from, probably Assyria, Samaria, Babylon, Acadia. But they found these ancient tablets. There were ancient tablets inside of the Twin Towers. And these ancient artifacts, these ancient tablets, were recovered. Where they went, I don't know. But they admit they were recovered from the rubble of 9/11, along with, the billions and billions in gold bars. And, as much as I have been researching this stuff over the past years and finding out that every time they declare a war somewhere, you can go and do the research and find out that there are antiquities and things that trace back to these alleged Anunnaki, from artifacts to ritual sites. Every time there's a war or a new enemy, it's on one of these places where you can go and do some research and find out that there are antiquities there. So when I think about how, all the things we were sold from 9/11, when I think about all the stuff I've researched, Jonesy being the cover for The Real Truth for 9/11 and putting out this second false narrative that actually runs counter to the mainstream narrative but provides a different narrative that sounds more legit than the one they put out but still has holes in it like Swiss cheese. For me, folks, and all the stuff that I've researched, it just makes everything come full circle. I'm like, my God, that's why they did it. And I remember reading right after 9/11, I saw this in the Dallas Morning News. There was an article. I had it hanging on my wall for the longest time. I've never been able to find anything. There was this, because me and my buddies were making this joke that we were going to go. It was a whole joke. Our whole joke was based on this news article. I could never find anything in the news. I can't find any new news articles that talk about it. But there was apparently a huge cache, vaults and vaults and vaults of cache of hundreds and hundreds of pounds of illegal drugs in the bottom of the World Trade Center as well that nobody knows what happened to. They never found them. They assume they were destroyed, but I think it's safe for us to assume they went the same place these gold bars and these ancient tablets went. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds of marijuana, hundreds of thousands of pounds of cocaine, ecstasy, heroin, everything. And this was reported in the news, and I, to this day, can't find any mention of that anywhere, but it was there, and they reported on it. Me and my buddies were talking about, let's go get jobs as rescue workers, and we'll go fucking, we'll go heist all that shit out of there and sell it, But I think somebody had already beaten us to the chase by that point. It says, hi, Josh. I was attempting to look for footage of the Special Forces looting of the Iraq National Museum, which is impossible to find on YouTube, it seems, but I found this clip instead. This is a report on stolen artifacts that were seized by customs in 2008. It shows a group of Middle Eastern yokels as the culprits, and some U.S. officials returning 1,000-plus items at some public venue back to Iraq. Needless to say, this is a rather typical PR portrait of events. However, at the end of the 3-minute report, they throw in a new 9/11 fact I had not previously known. There were ancient tablets present in one of the Twin Towers, and get this, they were successfully recovered from the ruins following 9/11. Well, I had never heard of that. But again, that's, with everything else I know. Oh, well, Nebuchadnezzar did, Saddam Hussein did call himself the reincarnation of King Nebuchadnezzar. And he was attempting to rebuild the temple of Nebuchadnezzar there in Iraq. Now, what's interesting is that that happened under Bush with the whole Saddam Hussein thing, and the Bush family traces back to the King Darius bloodline. Well, King Darius, who's the Behistun inscription inscribed on this giant rock in Iran, by the way, conveniently enough, declared that all of his bloodlines, and his bloodline later seeded what became the Merovingian bloodline, all the dominant bloodlines of the New World Order and the elite itself. And he declared that all the 23 lands with these long, drawn-out, crazy-ass names would be the dominion of his progeny forever, inscribed on this big rock in Iran. Because the people that used to inherit Iran that's what Iran means, Aryans. It was not, the people that inhabit Iran now are a mongrel people who weren't the original inhabitants of this. King Darius's children, his progeny, who are these elite bloodline people running the world in the war machine now, want to take their 23 lands back that just happen to be all the biblical lands, all the lands where all the oil is, and all the lands of the Middle East that they're fighting to take over. And so think about this. You have King Darius, progeny of, Bush and the whole bloodline and everything. He conquers Babylon, and along with crucifying King Nebuchadnezzar, he also slaughters 3,000 Babylonians. Here, you fast forward to our modern day, 9/11, Saddam Hussein, George Bush. Saddam Hussein calls himself the reincarnation of King Nebuchadnezzar. Bush, the descendant of Darius, crucifies Saddam Hussein, has him hung in public spotlight, crucifies him in public, conquers Babylon, New York, and slaughters 3,000 Babylonians, a.k.a. 3,000 dead on 9/11. You see the correlation there? What's past is prologue, dude. These guys leave it dropping all over the place. You going to sit there and tell me that's a coincidence? King Darius conquers Babylon, crucifies Nebuchadnezzar, and takes out 3,000 Babylonians. Then Bush, his progeny, captures Saddam Hussein, crucifies him in the public, then conquers Babylon, New York, and then 3,000 are dead on 9/11. I mean, those are just too big to ignore. But apparently, he was also starting to from what I found out is that the things that we have learned about these antiquities up until 10, 20 years ago, we didn't have a goddamn clue about, and nobody really gave a shit. Back in the days of the Cold War, everybody was wondering, how to keep the Cold War going so we can keep military spending up and keep funding up and keep everybody's big fat paychecks coming in. People weren't giving a fuck about ancient antiquities or what we could learn from or anything else. And Saddam Hussein started apparently back engineering some of this ancient technology and some of these things from these ancient tablets. So he was apparently, that's when they told us that he had weapons of mass destruction. Allegedly what he really had, and why they didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, and why we never heard about them finding anything, was because the alleged weapons of mass destruction that he had were actually this Sumerian Stargate, the ability to open this Stargate for things to come through it and things to go through the other side. And that's just the kind of sneaky stuff they like to do, so they can say that technically they didn't lie to us. Because they just tell us, oh, it's weapons of mass destruction. They go over there and they didn't find any, so shouldn't somebody be in trouble for that? But nobody was, right? Well, there's a reason why. Because they did go over there and indeed get something. And the people at the highest levels, when they look into this and try to say, okay, well, if they didn't find weapons of mass destruction, how come somebody's not getting in trouble for this? Because they actually did find something, but what they did find is classified. And so because of what they found being classified, nobody can get prosecuted or held accountable or anything else. Let's see what else we have here for the emails tonight. This says, we are filming a digital documentary on the Friendship Cube community. We would be happy to collaborate and co-develop with you. If you would like to send us any footage, we will consider using it. What is that? In the end, what does that mean? Footage of what? You're filming a digital documentary on the Friendship Cube? What the fuck is a Friendship Cube? Like the Wisdom Cube? Why don't you sit down over here and let me tell you a story. This one time, I ate a bunch of boiled peanuts, and I got sick. I don't know anything about that. Maybe send me some more info. How about that? This is from Daniel. He says, sounds like the disinfo is starting. Brad Lockwood's book sounds like they're starting to soften the line in anticipation of your research. Haven't read it, just heard him do an interview, but I'm starting to see and hear more about giants and pre-Columbian American inhabitants. Daniel, I mean, that's, as I talked about last week. You know, as I was making, after I made The Secret Right Volume 1, I started making Volume 2, I started seeing all of a sudden Jeremy Scahill and, Oberman and MSNBC start talking about CMP stuff and Blackwater and the Knights of Malta, and they're, naming all these people as members. And I'm sitting here going, you know what, where are they getting this info at? And I go try to find where they get this info at, can't find any sources on it. And I'm sitting here saying, well, that's not something you can just go and find on the internet. Obviously, that's some inside information. So I was able to be able to tell. And of course, Jonesy running his deflection operation shows where he had, Charlotte Iserby and fucking Bird Queen, Lizard Queen, fucking what's her face, Schlafly on there. So yeah, I mean, I'd already started to see the deflection campaigns on that, and I've started to see more and more start to happen like that. And these articles coming out since I've started getting into this rock wall thing. And, I've saw 4 or 5 of those things happen, didn't say anything, and I saw 5 or 6 more. And it just seems like every week now there are more and more articles coming out where they seem to be slowly acclimating the public to getting used to some sort of ground-shaking information showing that, indeed there was life and civilizations and society and everything else living and dying, existing on this planet eons before we even have been told is even possible. And I think that you're right, Daniel. I think that there is a slow trickle out of this because they know that I'm for real. And they know that this rock wall film is going to happen. And it's on. And we're gonna uncover some stuff. We're gonna shake things up with this. It's gonna be the biggest thing I've ever done up to this point. I mean, the CMP stuff's been big and it's been huge and it's important and continues to be. But I think they absolutely are trying to run a preemptive campaign to soften the blow when we start coming out with hard data on how old this stuff is. So it's it's just unbelievable to see them keep doing that. Let's see what else we have. This is from Mark. He says, Josh, I know that you do not open up websites during your show, but before you read this, if you do, I think that you should take a look over this. I will think you will really enjoy it. Fascinating to say the least. Oh, well, look. I'll look at this information, Mark, and I'll look at it. I'm not going to do it right here while I'm on the show. I'm not going to bother going through and reading this. I'll read your email and stuff on my own time. But I got to stop right there, to be honest with you. For me, I'm not saying it's not a possibility that what you're trying to get me to look at here could be legitimate info. But I got to say, just off the top, when the first thing I see when you say check something out says it comes from above topsecret.com, immediately for me, it's just red flag, dude. I mean, that is, I mean, you ask around people who've been doing this for a long time, like I have, people who've been researching stuff for a long time. I have. You ask around the chat room and stuff, people who, you'll get other opinions about this, not from other people other than me. AboveTopSecret.com is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, spook websites and disinformation strongholds that there is on the internet. I wouldn't believe a goddamn thing that you could read on that website unless you can verify it from other multiple sources. But again, take everything in, judge it by your own research. I mean, people oftentimes, they send me this stuff and they're, well, what do you think about this, that, and the other? And then they get mad when I'm telling my honest opinion about it, But I just, for me, as a rule, yeah, I don't mess with anything from AboveTopSecret.com. Am I tripping? Oh, no, it's storming outside. Okay. I just got in the zone. Completely forgot it's hear the thunder? I just saw a white flash outside my window. I was like, oh, yeah, it's storming. Shit. That's why it's acting like it's the end of the world out there. Man, oh, man, oh, man. We have a big ton of news to get into with you here tonight on the show. My website where this broadcast originates from is theglobalreality.com. We're going to take a break, come back, and get into news tonight. We're probably not going to be doing any reading tonight. It's going to probably take me the rest of the show to just get through the news. So hold tight. We will be, oh, yeah, back here with you. Hear that? It's like fucking motherships coming over or something. Jesus. Back here with you on the Global Reality. Thanks for being with us here tonight for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. We're going to be getting into a whole bunch of news in this segment of the show tonight. So thanks for staying up late with us and being here for another live show. If you're listening on a YouTube video or an archive later on, thanks so much for being here. I am going to, I made it a goal of mine in the immediate future to try and get get my show and the network and stuff up on iTunes and all that stuff. I'm going to be working on that. I've had so many requests for that, and I'm going to be working on figuring out how to do that, because it's pretty cool, especially if you have like the Apple TV thing. It's like $99, and it hooks up to your HDMI. It's pretty cool because you can hook it into your surround sound system, and it's got internet radio on there, and you can scroll through there, and you can, if you buy that little $99 box, they just came out with a new one on Friday. Once I get the show up there, you'll be able to, stream the show, basically through your home surround sound system. That's pretty sweet. I saw Oracle's up there, and of course Jonesy and a bunch of others. So, fucking Tarpley's up there. I'm like, Jesus, I got to get my shit up there. It was just saturated. I'm like, yeah, I got to see about doing that. I've had a lot of people request to be on iTunes and all that stuff. So, yes, I'm going to be doing my best into looking into that and seeing how to get all that up there, just for people who have been asking about that. So there you go. I don't know what that entails. If it's going to take it down to if I have to put it up in like 16K or some crappy ass quality, though, I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people want it. But if I have to lower my stream and my sound to conform to Apple's crappy fucking, low bit rate encoding procedures, then, I don't know if I'll do that or not. But I'll check it out and see what I can do. TheGlobalReality.com is our website. That's how you can find all the things to support our work up there. We have 2 Chipman banners up there right now. One for the bills of the month. We are about 34% of our goal on that one. And then we have the other one for the Rockwall film budget, the first preliminary budget for the film. And that one's 23%. So if you want to help us out on either one of those, please do so. And we will continue to be able to get our work done. I'm going to be traveling in a couple of weeks to shoot some footage for the film, for the Rockwall film. I'm going to be going in visiting some various Indian mounds, some of these location of mounds in various states to show, examples of these and how they're all over the South and how they're all over everywhere. And, of course, the whole downtown area of Rockwall is built on mounds. You can tell they just built the whole damn downtown over on top of it because of the elevation changes and the hills and everything else. But all that requires, we have got some help recently on that kind of stuff. So thanks to, you know who you are out there, people who've helped us and stuff like that. But we're going to be making that trip and doing that. But we need to reach those goals by the end of the month. So please help us out with that if you can. And keeps us commercial free, uncensored, and all the rest of it. So there you go. Let's see what kind of news we have here tonight. We have all kinds of news. This broke since last we talked. Of course, you've all heard about it by now. It's just so funny. Wasn't he the guy in that fucking picture that I was making fun of? Remember, I was making when the whole Coney thing broke out. I was making fun of the guy, the hipsters with the machine guns and rocket launchers, and I was like, "Look at that guy! Guarantee that guy's got the shins on his iPad." Apparently this guy got caught whacking it. And it did seem that a lot of people were jumping to the conclusion that they were, that the operation's a bust and it's blown up in their faces. So they're, blowing out invisible children like a dummy corporation or something. But I guess he got caught whacking it or something. But it appears now that they may be even more of a spook than we first thought, because it appears here from the news reports that there's not going to be charges made against him. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, if you or I were going to go have a naked meltdown in the middle of the street with our cocks out, they're going to take us to jail. They're going to press charges. Oh, I guarantee you, I'd be lucky if I went out in the middle of the street and fucking started going berserk like this fucker did. But he's not even getting charges pressed on him. Well, that tells you who he's got backing him, folks. Jason Russell, a filmmaker and activist behind the viral sensation Coney 2012, will probably escape charges after running naked through the streets of San Diego last week, police said yesterday. Mr. Russell's family said the bizarre incident was a result of a mental breakdown brought on by not taking enough breaks between mind control programming. That's what that is. Give me all this shit about brought on by exhaustion and a barrage of public attacks against him and his video demanding the arrest of Ugandan warlord. Oh, it's so stressful. Yeah, getting 20 million views on your video and getting all that revenue overnight is just so stressful. Cry me a fucking river, dude. If I put out a video and it got 20 million hits overnight, I would question that my damn self. You know what I mean? I wouldn't sit there and go, oh, yeah, I'm so great. Look at me. My information's so great. If one of my movies got 20 million hits over fucking night, I would be asking questions. I'd be the first one up going, why the fuck does my movie have this many views? Who the fuck is fucking with my stuff? Why are they trying to make it look like I have this many views? That's, I wouldn't be, oh, I'm so great. And so this guy, goes from being Mr. On Top of the world. No, we want to change things to I'm going to go run around in the street because I'm exhausted and have my shit out. It just doesn't add up. More than likely what it is he's started to figure out that he's not in control, that he is a puppet for a much larger faceless entity who's using him for this operation, and he went nuts and had a fucking episode in the middle of the street dealing with it. Because shit just got real for this guy. We thought a few thousand people would see the film, but in less than a week, millions of people saw it. This is how they get these dupes. Oftentimes, these guys are dupes, folks. It's just like they get dupes to do terror jobs, and they get dupes to be the phony hijackers on 9/11. I mean, think about it. These guys are leaving Qurans laying around strip clubs, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. You're about to get your 32 virgins, dude. Why are you fucking, why are you in a strip club beating your shit? Leaving Qurans laying around. Oh, let me leave a Quran here in the strip club for Allah. I don't think so. And it's the same thing here. These guys probably had no idea who was funding them, who was backing them. These are probably some struggling filmmakers looking to get some cash to make their film. Somebody probably said, hey, look, I'll make you a deal. You make this little film for me about this Ugandan rebel. Make it slick, make it where young people will get into it and get behind it. And if it does well, I'll bankroll your first major film. And that's probably all that was said. And so this guy did it. And then, of course, all this, we all start seeing it for what it is and calling it out for what it is and for being an operation. And then, this guy, Jason Russell, hears that and he starts looking at it and looking at what people are saying, the critics are saying, and realizing, oh, my God, if what these critics are saying is right, then I'm so far in over my head, I don't even know what I'm dealing with here. And then thus, there you have another classic case of the patsy, where any fallout or anything that later on comes down the road from this will be attributed solely to this group, Invisible Children, and Jason Russell, and running around naked in the street. And boom, here we have with this. They've set the precedent for him being, mentally unstable. So if they have to pull the plug on him at a later date, they can wrap it up nice and tight, just like Oswald. And boom, everybody will assume he was behind it. And, I think this thing has all the earmarks for the situation I just described. Some faceless entity making promises. I mean, it happens every day. It happens all the time. So it's definitely interesting stuff. The person who lives to be 1,000 years old has already been born. They're saying now, yeah. I mean, again, I've referenced this a lot lately, but it keeps coming up because, I read that book some years ago, and even 5-6 years ago, a lot of things that Brzezinski had predicted. A lot of people for years have thought Zbigniew Brzezinski was wrong about a lot of predictions and stuff he made in the past. But what's funny about it is that it's not that he was ever wrong about any predictions he made. We just haven't gotten to that. We just haven't gotten there yet. These guys are so calculating. They are willing to wait and willing for it to take hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, if need be, for this master plan to come to fruition. They just pass it down generationally, and the next generation comes up, and they're brought into the power structure, and they go about doing the business just as the person before them did it. But Brzezinski talked about in his book, The Rise of the Technotronic Era Between Two Ages, that in the early part of the 21st century, people would no longer work jobs for wealth and security and to have a nice home. These things, they would work their jobs and climb the corporate ladder to be able to have wealth to afford these life extension technologies. And he talked about creating this technological feudalism between the haves and the have-nots, and the people that are willing to work within the system and work and do the things that the system and the government wants you to do it the way they want you to play ball. You'll get these life extension technologies. And if you don't, you won't. And of course, that's going to set up this new version of classism, the likes of which we've never seen, a technological classism. And it's already happening microcosmically with gadgets and everything else. I mean, think about it. When you have a Wall Street broker who makes what he does a year, and he's walking down the street going to his firm with a Bluetooth headset on, with a BlueBerry or an iPhone in one hand, probably another one in another pocket, laptop in a bag, iPad on his other arm, lock, cock, ready to rock, constantly in communication, talking on his fucking headset. And then you have some other guy who is, just trying to get his bicycle pump to work long enough to air up his tire on his bike so he can make it to his job washing dishes. Now, if those two things exist in the same world already, and we know, of course, that they do, then the technological feudalism is already fucking here. It's not coming down the road. It's already here, but it's in a microcosmic way more than it will be macrocosmically later, much larger. And that's exactly what they want. That's why that they have been, over the past few decades, initiating the elimination of the middle class in and of itself. That's the new neo-feudalism, which is really one of the main things, main parts of the agenda that these people are doing. The neo-feudalism has just been a precursor for this technological feudalism that they're bringing in, where the gap between the haves and the have-nots and the gap between the rich and the poor won't be just strictly based on money and wealth and what kind of car you drive and what neighborhood you live in and what school your kids can go to. No, it will be based on whether or not you are going to have a significantly, or at least the illusion of a significantly increased life, where you will live longer and have more wealth, and it's going to put people in a lot more positions of power. So, I mean, anybody thinks for a second that these guys haven't for years been trying to get their hands on technology, whether it be from ancient societies buried deep underground or from back-engineered extraterrestrial craft, whatever it may be. But if you think for a second that the reason these guys have been putting as much money into technology and weapons as they have has been so they can create their technological feudalist system and become all-powerful overlords over us, I mean, you got another thing coming. That's exactly what they want to do. So no shocker there, really. The person who lives to be 1,000 years has already been born. Yep. I didn't really hear much about this other than when this story initially came out, I think, over the weekend. But it really just made me say, oh, wow, I was, there, called that one again, because I've been saying for months that we were going to see, specifically, even before the campaign really heated up this year, I told everybody here on this show, people that listen for a long time could back me up on this one, that there was going to be some chicanery and there was going to be some funny stuff going on at some point during the Ron Paul campaign to further enrage his followers and to further push people to the brink of having no other choice but wanting, armed conflict and violent revolution, which is exactly what we don't need, which is exactly what they want us to do. So apparently some shit went down. Police and organizers shut down proceedings at one of Missouri's largest caucuses as Ron Paul supporters feuded with local GOP leaders. It's like the Hatfields and McCoys around here. St. Charles County former GOP chairman told ABC News after police arrived on scene with a helicopter and removed Paul backers. In St. Charles, an exurb of St. Louis, and one of the state's largest GOP counties, Paul supporters sought to elect their own chairman and adopt their own rules when proceedings opened, both of which are part of standard caucus rules and procedures. But as they argued with the caucus chair, Paul supporters held video cameras against caucus rules, according to a GOP official who was there, and things became contentious. It turned into a little food fight within the caucus between the caucus chairman trying to control the caucus and certain elements, I guess with Ron Paul trying to be heard, said Tom Kuipers, a former chairman of the St. Charles GOP who attended the caucus at Francis Howell North High School. An off-duty police officer hired as security eventually fielded a trespassing complaint against the Paul supporters and notified on-duty police in the area municipality of St. Peter's, who, along with police from other jurisdictions, arrested two Paul supporters and ended the caucuses early. A joint jurisdictional police helicopter arrived on the scene. Kuiper said about 10 officers arrived in total. 2 people were arrested for trespassing after receiving numerous warnings to leave the school property. Both subjects were transported to St. Peter's Justice Center, where they were booked for trespassing and released on a summons. The St. Peter's police identified the Paul supporters as Brent Safford, 45, of O'Fallon, Missouri, and Kenneth Suter, 55, of St. Charles. Caucus business never really got started. The St. Charles GOP does not know whether it will send any delegates to the congressional district or state conventions, having elected none. Saturday's episode was a near repeat of 2008, when Paul backers succeeded in overwhelming other factions in the St. Charles caucus. According to Kuiper, their elected delegates were subsequently tossed from the congressional district convention for being verifiable libertarians and not Republicans, although Missouri has no voter registration by party. So 2 times in a row this happens there, and I mean this is classic, folks. This is what they do. They instigate this stuff and they make this happen so they want all these Ron Paul people to go crazy and to believe that they've cheated him and he's really legit, but they've used their rigged voting machines. I mean, you understand that Ron Paul's buddies are all the guys who rigged the election and won it for Bush back in 2000, right? I talked about that in See Right Volume 1. That's a fact. So all this ballyhoo and all this crying and horse shit, I want to know what these fucktards are going to say and how they're going to back out of it, because they'll justify it 7 ways to Sunday. But it's going to be funny to see when Romney decides to take old Ron Paul as his running mate, which immediately, if you haven't already completely disavowed yourself from participating in the phony election system at all, and you're still supporting Ron Paul, I mean, this would be the time to pull out when that happens, folks. But these fucking brainwashed clowns will try to justify it any way they can. Oh, well, if it's a chance for Ron Paul to get in there, then I'll think it'll be good. I still think they're going to fucking Manchurian candidate his ass. Remember that? Wasn't that the whole thing in the Manchurian candidate? The vice president was the guy they really wanted to be in there. He was their main boy. So they set the other guy up to, oh, wow, that was crazy. That was, you hear that? That lightning was so close to my window that everything in my room just went, Sound like the fucking electric chair. Yeah, we're getting some wicked storms here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area tonight. Look, the Ron Paul campaign is just a part of the PSYOP, okay? It's the same part of these military-conducted psychological operations that have been conducted by Paul Vallely, the senior military analyst at Fox News, who ran all the military Army PSYOP stuff that Michael Aquino was involved in. That guy's a birther. I mean, he's on that same right-wing CMP type of team. And that's what this is. This is a continuation of the PSYOP, and that's why that's why the CMP stuff and all the stuff that I've exposed in the Secret Volume 1 and 2 is important. Because all of these factions and these sides and these movements and all these things they try to get you in are psychological operations to put you in a box so they can later tell you there's an enemy that you need to unite against. It's always about the producing of an externalized enemy so that you can get one group of people fighting against other group of people. They've been doing it over and over again. I cannot believe in 2012 that the majority of people out there in the world still buy into this crap. But I'm going to get up here and talk about it until more people start figuring it out. And I'm not going to stop. So there you go. Dutch Roman Catholic Church castrated at least 10 boys. At least 10 teenage boys or young men under the age of 21 were surgically castrated to get rid of homosexuality while in the care of Dutch Roman Catholic Church in the 1950s. Well, that's a shock. Oh, they want to get rid of their homosexuality so they clip their nuts. Yeah, somehow I doubt that was the case. They were probably what the real case is they wouldn't be homosexuals, And since that's a prerequisite of the Roman Catholic Church and a prerequisite of the Jesuit order especially, they probably, in fear that they would, they're trying to molest me, and I wouldn't let him molest me because I'm not a homo. So they come in, they castrate them and cut their nuts off, and they go, yeah, we had to go and cut their nuts off because they're homos. Evidence of the castrations has emerged amid controversy that it was not included in the findings of an official investigation into sexual abuse within the church last year. The NRC Handelsblad newspaper identified Hank Heathius, who was castrated in 1956 while a minor after reporting priests to the police for abusing him in a Catholic boarding home. I was exactly right. So he reported that priests had been abusing him in a Catholic boarding home, and after he reported these priests, they castrated him and said that he was a homosexual. So I was exactly right. That's exactly what they were doing. All these guys are homos. They get in there and put a finger in your ass and try to diddle your asshole and put their cock in your ass. And then when you back off or push them around and say, no, I don't roll that way, then they turn it around and say, oh, you're a homo. Well, nobody's going to believe that I'm that you tell them I'm a homo. They're going to believe that I'm this fine, upstanding priest. So all we have to do to get rid of you and to keep your mouth shut, this is probably how they've been doing it for years. And why people have been so afraid to not go along with it. It's either, be a butt boy, be a brown boy, take it in the butt, or we're going to cut your nuts off and then brand you as a homosexual even though you're not one. And this stuff has gone on, and people wonder why people are still having discussions about gay marriage and, and just gay stuff in general. I mean, most people don't care and want to just let other people live their lives. But I do see why it's a controversy. I do see why people argue about it, because it's really, when you do the research, it's hard to deny that the big subsection of these elites from time immemorial have all been homosexuals and have all been pedophiles and have all been into sexual deviancy with their own kind. And when you see how, just how far-reaching that is, it's very hard to have this attitude about, because that's why they wanted to give. You think they give a fuck about anybody's rights or gay rights or black rights or anybody's rights? I don't think they'll give a shit about that. The only reason that they ever started any of that stuff is they start up those groups, same as they start anything else, to get people riled up and fighting with each other. That's all it is. But the reason they've made an issue out of this gay thing is because they want to make it, a hate crime, or make it wrong to accuse anyone of doing anything wrong if they happen to be a homosexual, because, well, then that could be a hate crime. You're being intolerant of this person. No, I'm not being intolerant of this person. I'm trying to tell you this person is a child molesting homosexual pedophile who has a wife and claims that he's, anti-gay, but in the background he's, running off to Jamaica with rentboy.com and his perfectly 8-inch sculpted cock. The phrase of the past few weeks, and this is something I coined a few years ago, and I just see it more and more. Yesterday's conspiracy theory is today's fact. I had a friend recently. I told him several years ago about the boys from Brazil thing, and how they had went down to South America and started setting up these cloning operations and all this stuff. And, how just thousands of Nazis had fled to South America, and they were really setting up a Nazi colony down there. And I told a friend of mine about that, and I guess he didn't really believe me, or thought that I was making it up and it was total bullshit and just conspiracy theory. And one day I was hanging out with him, and he said, man, I got to be honest with you, I thought all that stuff was a conspiracy theory. And I was sitting here at work one day, and the TV came on, and there was the National Geographic Channel. They were talking openly about, them setting up these cloning operations and all this. I'm like, yeah, dude. I thought you were just making that up. I'm like, why would I make that up? How could I make that up? It's a fact. Well, here it is. They're coming out with it now. Again, this was a conspiracy theory just a short time ago. Secret files reveal 9,000 Nazi war criminals fled to South America after World War II. Derpy derp. Yep, we've known that for years. Oh, my God, I can't believe that. But I doubt they're going to tell you who got them in there, us, the United States. I doubt they're going to tell you what enabled us to be able to have the Never a Straight Answer agency and to actually get rockets off the ground at all. Those were Nazis. They literally went in and changed their paperwork to say they weren't Nazis when they were and just scratched it out when they brought over the Nazis during Project Paperclip. 9,000 Nazi war criminals fled to South America after the Second World War. It has been revealed for the first time. After receiving tip-offs, German prosecutors were recently granted access to secret files in Brazil and Chile that confirm the true number of Third Reich immigrants. According to the documents, an estimated 9,000 war criminals escaped to South America, including Croatians, Ukrainians, Russians, and other Western Europeans who aided the Nazi murder machine. Most, perhaps as many as 5,000, went to Argentina. Between 1,500 and 2,000 are thought to have made it to Brazil, around 500 to 1,000 to Chile, and the rest to Paraguay and Uruguay. These numbers do not include several hundred more who fled to the safety of right-wing regimes in the Middle East. Previous estimates as to how many Nazis fled to South America have varied widely, from 5,000 to 300,000. The files also showed that during the war, Argentine President General Juan Perón sold 10,000 blank Argentine passports to Odessa, the organization set up to protect former SS men in the event of defeat. Kurt Schrem, 62, head of the Central War Criminal Authority in Germany, is among the legal team sifting through the archives. So there you go. Of course, nobody knew about this at the time. This wasn't reported in the news at the time. Did they go around telling everybody that, oh, by the way, 9,000 Nazi war criminals fled to these places, and we know where they went, but we're not going to tell you. So now they figure people aren't going to get mad about it now, so they're going to go ahead and let you know. But it just shows you the complicity of, a country like the United States or a country like Britain or any other country, obviously working in tandem with the alleged enemies. We talked last week about how Hitler got his entire, this is on CNN, dude, on fucking Anderson Cooper. I'd never come across that in my research. That Hitler got his entire eugenics program from the state of California, who was already running the exact same eugenics program Hitler did prior to World War II, prior to Hitler and the Nazis. I mean, that's case closed right there, isn't it? That along with, Prescott Bush and the Brown Brothers Harriman thing, and they got caught red-handed aiding and funneling money to the Nazis and got put on trial and got off. And that just didn't happen, folks. They were, those were some big-time fuckers. Obama says nice weather is making him a little nervous. That's odd. What do you know we don't know? Oh, I'm getting nervous here. The weather's too nice. It needs to be fucking hellfire and damnation. We need to have another forecast in here. It's going to be cloudy with a side of apocalypse. I'm just kidding. I'm going for 4 more years, bitch. I'm rich. Oh, man. Do a dance for us, Carlton. Do a dance. What would happen if a nuclear bomb hit Washington, D.C.? The terrifying report that predicts damage a terror attack would wreak on the nation's capital. Well, this is some obvious, interesting fear-mongering here. I think a lot of people would probably assume this is, this is an indicator that they may be getting ready to pull another phony terrorist attack on ourselves, on our own American targets yet again. Very well may be, but they are actually studying very in depth now. Hey man, Hydra, you're our webmaster. You're in Washington D.C., right? Get the fuck out of D.C. They may be getting ready to nuke that motherfucker, bro. I'm not trying to scare you or fearmonger. I'm just saying, well, I'll read this article. I just know these fuckers, man, and they don't put this kind of money into these kind of things, unless there's something to it. And we know that with 9/11, that was, that was the other target. That's where Flight 93 wanted to go. They wanted to go for the government buildings even then. It is perhaps unsurprising that a nuclear bomb set off in the nation's capital would cause devastating and widespread damage. Yet the simple conclusion did not put the government off, and they commissioned a report to assess the impact of a potential terror attack on Washington, D.C. The results are far from comforting. The half-mile radius around the bomb would have a low chance of survival, and most buildings, including that of the federal government, would be destroyed. I mean, is this possibly why they've been setting up the new Capitol in Denver that everybody's been talking about? They're already planning to do this. They had already been planning this prior to 9/11. It didn't go all the way they wanted it to go. They're getting ready to do this again. Is that why they're setting up new Capitol? The study simulated a nuclear strike on 16th and K Streets, which is the heart of the city and just a couple of blocks from the White House. Buildings, including the White House, the Capitol, Treasury Department, old executive office building, and many along the National Mall would be instantly destroyed. The next half mile would suffer extensive damage, fires, and serious injuries, and those within 3 miles could suffer minor injuries and slight damage to their homes. But it was the fallout which the nuclear capital region, key response planning factors for the aftermath of nuclear terrorism study held last year, suggested could be the most fearful aspect. It suggests that unlike nuclear bombs detonated in the Cold War, which were designed to decimate entire cities, the smaller bomb would leave survivors and ask what would they have to deal with. The study, which was reported on Gizmodo, points out that radioactive fallout could vary depending on the time of the year. In April, Washington's Bethesda area would suffer the brunt of the dust, while throughout the rest of the year, the city's poorer regions and Northern Virginia would be exposed. Oh, imagine that. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? Just like it was convenient that, of course, when the levees broke and New Orleans and all that stuff, it was in the poor pipe, because all that was a land grab. Just like the wildfires out in Malibu a few years ago. I mean, the only people that were affected by those wildfires in Malibu were the people who live in Malibu that cook meals and do the dry cleaning and, work for the rich fuckers that live there. Because, all the rich Jew filmmakers and all those fucks, they had these big trucks out there spraying foam around their houses so their houses weren't touched. But all the poor people who weren't, Jeffrey Kranzenberg from fucking DreamWorks or something, they had their property destroyed, and then what did they do? Same thing they did in New Orleans. After the floods destroyed everything. They jacked the price up on that, the value up on that real estate immediately. The people have no choice but to sell because they can't afford to rebuild because the property value is going through the roof. And then, boom, they take their land. Well, that's what that's the same thing they could do here. It says right here that the lower income areas of Washington, D.C. would be most affected by a nuclear blast. And when you look at everything else they've done everywhere else, and you look at how sick and, truly racist these people are. I mean, they go around, one of their big agendas is, stirring up the pot of this phony racism and getting us all hating each other and tearing each other apart. But really, the real racists are them. They're the people who want to kill anybody that's not like them. And it's sad to me, when we got people of all races and all creeds and all colors that are asleep to this stuff. But it's just funny to me that, I don't know, man. The black people have just been brainwashed to think that every single white person is the white devil and is against them. Not all of them, but a lot of people have been brainwashed to that. When that's absolutely not the case. But yet they can't see. They get caught up in exactly what the power structure wants. That's why they allowed black culture to rise the way they did. That's why they've allowed it as big of an audience and pumped as much money in as they can, because, they're the ones providing the money, but what they're getting in exchange is they're getting this programming and this apathy where nobody cares to even wonder who the puppet masters are or where the money's coming from. As long as they got the bitches and the hoes and the bling bling, they don't give a fuck who the money's coming from, white devil or otherwise. That's why they killed Tupac, because he was speaking out against the white priests. There's that album that Don killed Illuminati, Machiavelli, where he says something about Jay-Z or somebody, and talks about him being with the white priest bloodlines or something. You thought we wouldn't know or something like that. He says something straight up in there about, I can't remember the song. I have to find it and play it on here. But Tupac says something straight up in there about them, about them being fake and being with the white priests and all this stuff. And I guarantee you that was if I had to put my finger on it, I'd say that's single-handedly the statement right there that got Tupac killed. Because he called out these people like Jay-Z for being with the white priests, the Levites who control religion and the music industry and all that stuff. And he basically called them out. I mean, when Jay-Z throws up that hand sign, what do you think he's throwing that up to? That's to the Levite tribe, the white priests. So yeah, it's unbelievable stuff. But yeah, this stuff with Washington D.C. and I know the huge population of minority citizens in Washington D.C. is huge, and it just seems like too big of a coincidence to me that they're talking about if a nuke hit Washington D.C. Anywhere past April, that the most affected region would be the poor region, and of course the downtown buildings. I don't know, man. I'll tell you the same thing I started telling you last year before we even got here in 2012. Be ready for anything. Be expecting anything. Be expecting the craziest. You know how when 9/11 happened, nobody was really expecting it? Well, you need to be prepared for things you never thought were going to happen on a scale even larger than 9/11. And it's going to be very important with whatever happens, and whether that's nothing or whether that's big cataclysms, who knows, but you just have to be ready to be rational in your thinking about these things and to not fly off half-cocked and go crazy and join in the madness whenever they start, really executing on this shit. Atomic bomb asteroid will definitely miss us this time, but it comes back every year. Again, don't want to close my eyes. They are ramping up the asteroids are going to destroy us again. Von Braun, right, yet again. First it would be communists, then terrorists, then asteroids, then aliens. An asteroid with the destructive power of an H-bomb is scheduled to sweep past Earth at a distance closer than commercial satellites. Asteroid 2012 DA-14 circles the Earth once a year, and when it flies by next February, it will be just 24,000 kilometers away. Luckily, it's not going to hit us this time around, but we warned that this is just one of just 500,000 rocks circling in a close orbit. Notice how it's every day there's stories about this. Every day now they just happen to mention for your safety and for your knowledge, just so you'll know and be informed that, by the way, there's over 500,000 rocks. We could get hit by an asteroid anytime. We could have a city nuked. And I still think they're going to use that as a front. I still think that they could use this X-37B and these gravity bombs and the rods of God. They could very easily drop one of these on a major city. And the way it would look coming from orbit, even if it was caught on camera, it would look, it would just be a big flaming fireball hitting the ground with the destructive force of an A-bomb. They could easily go on TV when a city nuked that actually is this gravity bomb rod of God thing they launched and say it was an asteroid and that now we have to have an asteroid defense system, that it's going to be, space-based laser satellites, and, we have to have this, and the taxpayer has to pay for it, and blah, 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 so that they have the ability to, what they want is they want to be able to create a shield around the Earth and basically, for lack of a better term, create the prison planet. That's the goal. They don't want anybody coming in from any other places who may disrupt their agenda and their world order, and they don't want anybody getting out. That's the long and the short of it. Glow-in-the-dark sushi made from genetically modified fish becomes the latest food craze to hit America. It wasn't enough to just have glow-in-the-dark pigs for pets and glow-in-the-dark fish. No. Now we want to have our sushi glow-in-the-dark and we eat it. You know what? I'll tell you what. Sushi is so expensive. I mean, maybe this is the business I should get into. You want glow-in-the-dark raw fish? I can make you some right now. I'll chop that motherfucker up, dip it in some fucking toxic waste, roll it up, and you have fun eating that, buddy, till your insides fucking get shit out your other end. Sushi that glows in the dark has become the latest. I want to read this like, sushi that glows in the dark has become the latest most tried food craze across America. Inspired by genetically modified fish, first bred for scientific research, a video showing how to make the glowing sushi has become a huge hit online. You just got to read this like you're in Japan. Japanese, we love the glow-in-the-dark sushi. We get this from Fukushima. Oh, man. Japanese folks are intense. Asian people in general are intense. I mean, this is just sick. Look at this. I mean, seriously. Do you not have any? I have more sense than to eat anything that looks like that. Look at that. Look at that picture I just dropped in the chat room. Glow-in-the-dark pets out of your fish tank wrapped on a fucking rice coffin and served up on a plate. Does that look like, I mean, that's really what you want to eat? Who the fuck wants to eat that? That's all the proof you need for reptilians right there is the fact that somebody thinks that that's a desirable meal. Yeah, for a fucking reptile. That's just absolutely disgusting. And of course, it's genetically modified. Oh, of course. Hey, I got a question for you. Did anybody but me, maybe, I mean, I don't know everything. Certainly not. Not even close, but I know quite a bit. But I'd tell you something, and anybody but me not know that Egypt has a pope? News to me. I didn't know Egypt had a pope. Yeah, Egypt has a pope, and he died over the weekend. Egypt Coptic Christian Pope Shendawa dies. Egyptian Coptic Christian Pope Shendawa III, the patriarch of most of Egypt's estimated 12 million Christians, died on Saturday from old age, his political advisor told Reuters. Bells tolled in Cairo's Abiyaza district, site of Egypt's main Coptic cathedral, as the news spread. Shendawa, 88, became the 117th Pope of Alexandria. The Pope of Alexandria? What the fuck kind of ancient patriarchal society horseshit is this? No, I had no idea. I had no idea there was an Egyptian Pope. You learn something new every day. I mean, I can remember back in 2008, 2009, when I used to talk about the Black Pope, and there were people on Oracle Broadcasting when I was on that network that literally would go on their radio shows and say the Black Pope was a conspiracy theory. And one day I got an email from somebody saying that the Black Pope was broadcasting live from some Jesuit university in San Francisco. So when I was coming back from a break, I fucking plugged it into the board and went live and carried the Black Pope talking live on my radio network. Boy, that shut some fucking people up after that. But there's a picture of the Egyptian Pope there that just died. And look at that guy. Tell me, isn't that the guy that played Saddam Hussein? One of the fake Saddam Husseins? I think it is. Either that or that is Saddam Hussein. I don't know. Remember there was a couple of fake Saddams going around? Remember his wife during the trial, Saddam Hussein's trial, and she had to be pulled out of the courtroom because Saddam Hussein's wife was standing up saying, "That's not my husband. That's not my husband." That fucker, sure enough, looks like Saddam Hussein, doesn't he? Well, you learn something new every day. I had no idea that there was a Egyptian Pope. So the new Apple iPad just came out. They're doing away with their number scheme. They're not calling it the iPad 3. They're just calling it the new iPad. I got one of these iPads for Christmas, and I like it. It's great for me for, on the go to have internet access to check email and communicate and stuff like that. Because I don't own a phone. I refuse to own a cell phone. How many of you out there that claim to be against this stuff don't own a cell phone? Probably not too many of you. I think I'm one of the last holdouts. But the reason when I got one for Christmas, I was like, I knew they were coming out with a new one probably 2 months after I got mine, and it'd be obsolete. But I knew it was going to have problems. And sure enough, they've tried to pack too much in these things, and the new one is a lot heavier, all for the sake of having some, super high-def screen. I tell you, the screen is high enough resolution for me on the iPad, too, and the thing does everything I need it to do. But I knew it was going to be problematic because they're putting a quad core in it and a gig of RAM. There's nothing to these things. They're tiny. And, even with desktop systems, you run into overheating problems. Even my iMac that I used to make the Seeger-Wright 2, I was pushing that fucker so hard when I was making that movie that it would get hot and stuff. But of course now, just as I had predicted, the new iPads that are out are overheating on everybody because of course there's not even proper ventilation on those things. And if you put it in a case, which you kind of have to do because it's got an aluminum back on it. If you drop that thing on a hard surface, well, you've got hard driving parts and all that stuff in there. It's probably going to get broken. But they've got these snap cases and these leather cases you can get for it. Well, the problem is with that is none of these cases have any ventilation on it. The only ventilation you have on your iPad itself is the little hole where the speakers are, which they claim is all the ventilation it needs. But, that's pretty much the modus operandi for these tech companies now. If you're going to buy a new piece of tech, it's always good to buy it generally about the time when it is going to be antiquated, because at least you'll know by then, what the bugs are. Instead, they rush this stuff out to the public so that the public will, alpha test and beta test it for them so they don't have to pay lackeys to do it themselves. The CIA wants to spy on you through your TV. Agency director says it will transform surveillance. They're finally admitting that they're doing this, even though this has been going around the conspiracy world for years, and then apparently this has been going on for years and years and years. When people download a film from Netflix to a flat screen or turn on web radio, they could be alerting unwanted watchers to exactly what they are doing and where they are. Spies will no longer have to plant bugs in your home. The rise of connected gadgets controlled by apps will mean that people bug their own homes, says CIA Director David Petraeus. The CIA claims it will be able to read these devices via the internet and perhaps even via radio waves from outside the home. Everything from remote controls to clock radios can now be controlled via apps, and chip company ARM recently unveiled low-powered, cheaper chips, which will be used in everything from fridges and ovens to doorbells. The resultant chorus of connected gadgets will be able to read like a book and even remote controlled, according to CIA Director David Petraeus' recent report in Wired's Danger Room blog. Petraeus says that web-connected gadgets will transform the art of spying, allowing spies to monitor people automatically without planting bugs. Yeah, this is what cell phones and tablets and gadgets and all this stuff have been about for years. To willfully get us to take all of this intrusive, invasive spying stuff into our homes willfully, and then when we sign or click OK to the agreement, the terms of service agreement, without reading it, we agree to we agree to let them track and trace. That's what you agree to with terms of service agreements. You agree to allow them to track and trace you, and if you don't agree with that, you don't get to use your device. The South Park did a great thing on that last year. Total Information Awareness Surveillance Program returns bigger than ever. They shut down Total Information Awareness a few years ago, and it became part of Echelon and now Google. Now that Google's become the massive force it is, they're transforming it even more now. A new feature story in this month's Wired blows the lid off plans for a massive new National Security Agency data center in Utah that represents the resurrection of a program that Congress killed in 2003 known as Total Information Awareness, targeting literally all electronic communications all over the world, including those made by American citizens. The The proposal was to build computing systems that could suck up every electronic communication on the planet and filter them through a smart supercomputer that would flag certain conversations, emails, transactions, and other items of interest for further review. It was a program so monstrous in scope that after a brief legislative battle, Congress imposed strict regulations on the type of technology that could accomplish those ends, prohibiting it from ever being used against Americans. But if well-sourced intelligence reporter James Bamford is to be believed, as of this year, their efforts to stop it are moot. According to Bamford, the NSA's new data center in Utah will be the most all-encompassing spy machine ever conceived, capable of breaking almost any encryption, reading any email, and recording any phone call anywhere in the world, even if it's not made over the internet. A network of ultra-sensitive satellites enhance the center's intelligence-finding capabilities with a unique ability to sniff electronic communications from a massive distance. More troubling still, Bamford's 3 covert sources who work for the NSA reportedly claim that the agency is dumping Americans' communications into the mix, knowingly violating the U.S. Constitution in pursuit of a modern-day Manhattan Project. When Congress struck down the Pentagon's Total Information Awareness Program, they did, however, authorize funding for processing, analysis, and collaboration tools for counterterrorism foreign intelligence, which is precisely how the NSA describes this data center. Just a year after that authorization, Bamford notes that the Department of Energy founded a computing facility where scientists developed technology that was secretly being funneled to the NSA for the data center currently under construction. Bamford sources are not the first to come forward with claims of dubious activity in the NSA. The Obama administration prosecuted NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake for funneling secret data to a nameless reporter. And former NSA analyst Russell Tice came forward with other revelations in 2005 and again in 2009. Even back then, he was warning that the NSA had access to all Americans' communications and even private credit card information. That message was heard and heard well by lawmakers like Senator Jay Rockefeller, who said that he would not be surprised to learn that the NSA was even spying on him. Yeah, he already knew they were spying on him, but of course, when you're in the club, it doesn't matter, right? Children whose minds wander have sharper brains. A study has found that people who appear to be constantly distracted have more working memory, giving them the ability to hold a lot of information in their heads and manipulate it mentally. Boy, I tell you what, that's exactly how I am. And I've been like that my whole life. I remember when I was a kid, I had it pretty rough when I was younger. You know, my parents splitting up when I was a baby, and was with my mom, lived with my mom, and only saw my dad every other weekend until I was like 6. And then my mom had a boyfriend who she later had 2 children with, who, essentially didn't want me around. So he tried to kill me, made me stay up, abused me, made me stay up all night holding weights, those big those hand weights you lift. I had to stand up all night till the sun came up inside an apartment and hold these weights when I was 6 and little. I just had surgery on my foot because I was born with a club foot. And if I cried or I couldn't go to the bathroom or anything else, then he would beat me, and my mom allowed him to, and that's something I had to come to grips with over the past several years. I always had the scars and memory of that happening. My dad got custody of me after that. But it traumatized me so much, and, I always wondered why, certain relationship problems, and so it just never dawned on me. I guess I'd blocked it out of my mind how much of a scar that left on me that, not only did my mother, and I was begging her to not let him kill me, and he was trying to kill me. He threw me in a swimming pool when I couldn't swim and almost drowned. I don't know how I survived. But I came to school on one day, and I had bruises all over me from getting the hell beat out of me. And, luckily they caught that, and I was able to go live with my dad for that. But, it really, having to realize that your mother didn't stop someone who was hurting you And not only did she not stop that person, but she went on to went on to have 2 other children with that person. That's the kind of thing. That's why I don't talk to my mother, and I don't know. I just kind of figured that out recently. But I remember one time when I was in about 3rd grade or so, they sent me to a child psychologist at Scottish Rite Hospital in Dallas. And they got me in this room. I was like in 3rd grade, and they got me in this room, and it was real. It seemed like real mind control type stuff. Like, they were trying to get me to conform to something I didn't want to conform to. And they were asking me all these questions, these child psychology questions. And we're sitting there, and we were up in this building. And, I was a little kid, man. I was like 8. And we were up in this top of this building, the 4th or 5th floor. The sun's shining. It's nice outside, and you can just see out these big glass pane windows that wrap all the way around this room. From one corner of the room to the other, it's glass windows, and you're way up in the air. So in the middle of this, I'm looking outside, and the person says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just, staring, glancing out the window outside." "That's why we're here." Why? Because my mind is wandering. So I can totally relate to that, of this. Because that's sort of how my brain works as well. I remember stuff like that. It's how I'm able to remember so much information I talk about here on the show. New Hampshire woman sued for planting flowers in her front yard. Oh, that's a new one. So I guess it's illegal to even plant flowers in your front yard now. That's just great. Stanford researchers create exotic electrons that may lead to new materials and devices. Researchers from the Stanford University and U.S. Department of Energy's SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory have created the first ever system of designer electrons, exotic variants of ordinary electrons with tunable properties that may ultimately lead to new types of material and devices. The behavior of electrons and materials is at the heart of essentially all of today's technology, said Harry Manoharan, Associate Professor of Physics at Stanford and a member of SLAC's Stanford Institute for Materials and Energy Science, who led the research. We are now able to tune the fundamental properties of electrons so that they behave in ways rarely seen in ordinary materials. That's what I've been saying for years, the whole key to this, why they've had CERN and why they've been trying to find the God particle and all this, is so they can do exactly what they're talking about doing here. Creating materials and being able to get things down to the subatomic level where they can actually manipulate matter and manipulate reality itself. These guys don't just want to play God, they want to be God. What we've heard about over the past couple of months or so, now it's supposedly if you go in and pay for coffee at Starbucks with cash, or you go anywhere and pay for coffee with cash, supposedly the clerk is supposed to alert law enforcement that you may be a possible terrorist, which I just thought was funny in and of itself, because if somebody pays in cash, what are you going to tell the authorities when you call them and say, hey, what's going on? I was told if anybody comes in and buys coffee with cash, it might be a terrorist? Yes, that's right, sir. Okay, well, just want to call you and tell you that we just had this guy come in. He's about 6'1", kind of middle-class looking guy. Looked like he was about to go to work. He got a decaf mocha latte with no foam, and he paid cash. Yeah. Well, how the fuck are you gonna be able to report anybody to the authorities if you didn't? If they paid cash, that means you didn't see a name on a card or something. But now they're saying that if you are yawning or you have goosebumps, you could be a terrorist. I'm not making this up. A U.S. Department of Homeland Security document aimed at raising awareness on how people can help combat terrorism has warned that passengers yawning, developing goosebumps, and appearing fidgety could all be potential terrorists. I mean, those are the kind of things you experience when you fly on a plane. Change in altitude, Your ears pop, you get nervous, there's turbulence. A presentation titled Terrorism Awareness and Prevention, released by the New Jersey office of the agency, said it aims to educate the public on recognizing potential threats in any environment at work and in the community as well, and how to report them. The document said that signs will become particularly evident in a person's eyes, face, neck, and body movements. According to the report, if an individual has a cold stare, a trance-like gaze, or wide flashbulb eyes, he or she might be a terrorist. I think I should do I'm going to start doing stand-up in my redneck voice, and I'm going to make me a modern-day version of old Jeff Foxworthy, and I'm going to talk about you might be a terrorist if you got a TV in your house with a sitting on top of another TV that don't work, you might be a terrorist. So don't yawn, otherwise somebody might think you're a terrorist, and don't get the goosebumps for any reason. Don't let anything natural like that happen. Otherwise, my God, it's just clear they're trying to get people angry and mad and wanting armed conflict and wanting to kill and destroy, wanting to get them to tear things apart. It's just crystal clear now, isn't it? Man, oh man, oh man. Well, we're going to leave it there tonight. Want to thank everybody for tuning in and being with us. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you didn't get too trashed over the weekend. Hope you're ready for another week of news and information. We're going to be hammering it hard this week. Got lots of stuff to get into. We're reading more from The End of Days by Sitchin, tomorrow's show. We're almost done with that book. We'll be moving on to some other reads as well. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. It's TheGlobalReality.com. That's our website. We don't have commercials. We don't have sponsors. I have no outside funding from this. And in order for this work to continue and for me able to get out new films and new things to you, we have to have donations and we have to have support to do that. And you can use our chip-in banners, our donate button, our P.O. box if you can't use PayPal. You can become a member. There are all kinds of ways there to support our work at TheGlobalReality.com. Please do so today and help us be able to continue. My name is Josh Reeves, and I love each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow for the broadcast.